So Michelangelo is telling us that the Orion Nebula is the area that we created, and we take a look. We take a look at what we see. What else in the Sistine Chapel? If this is the Orion Nebula, then we can see that the Orion Nebula is creating the sun, moon, and plants. Okay, the separation of the earth from the waters. We already know that Orion is producing enough water in 24 minutes to fill all the Earth's oceans. Separation of light and darkness. So we have this constant theme that is agreeing with itself so far. So now here's where we're going to dig into some of the pictures, and we're going to take a look at what these guys are showing us. Now, the first place I noticed this was in the church, the St. Charles Church. It's a very, very easy thing to see. All you got to do is grab yourself an infrared version of the Orion Nebula, and you can clearly see these images coming out. You see Yahweh being in the center right here. Right here. Same place. This is more to tie it to the mind for you. The Ark of the Covenant, showing Yahweh right in the center, which would be the same place as Osiris, which would be between the two temples, the hidden God between the two temples, right? The ark, meaning the arc, like an arc of electricity, between the two angels, which are actually this area of the thalamus right here. This area right here is the thalamus, sitting on top of this arc structure. It's the same thing. Ark of Covenant, Ark of Electricity. Now this goes way back into this connection that they had with their mind's eye, goes way back into ancient Sumeria. For example, this is the god, these are the same winged discs that you see in the Babylonian, Assyrian, Sumerian winged disc gods. This right here is the Orion Nebula, and all that has been done here is a change in contrast and brightness in order to bring out the definition that's in the center of the Orion Nebula. As you can clearly see here, there is a man right here, and the association with the disc that you see that he has in his hand is the same. Also notice the band that goes through his head is also there, just like you have right here. So these are archetypes, and notice the feathers right here that you have right there associated. It's the same thing. And so what you have to ask yourself is, how is it that something like this has been created to show us this? You can also verify this image. You don't have to go with NASA. You can also go to other amateur telescopes that take very high definition pictures of the Orion Nebula as well. And I have verified this also just to understand that it wasn't NASA's only creation, but you can also verify this in other places as well. And plus, I find it very hard to believe that NASA would be able to imitate all of these images that these masters have painted that you're going to see that go all the way through history. The one thing I want you to see about the mind before we go any further is this picture here. This bright spot, and what we can see it in Michelangelo's picture that he did for us here. If you see God's arm, which is going around this young lady here, okay, you can see it all the way through. And what the bright spot is, which is what we have right here, is the same as God's heart. Okay, so here's your heart connection. Now, the mind connection part of this is that we have this area right here corresponds to the thalamus. And what you see is that here it is right here. Here's your thalamus. Here's the fornix that goes around it. You can see it's clearly there. And this is also the heart that we see in there. If you go take a look at thalamus out on the internet, you'll find that, and this is just one site right here, it says in the normal person the thalamus bears the task of filtering out the myriad of impulses flooding into our brain at any given moment. It is the gatekeeper that assures that messages are prioritized and regulated. The thalamus has been given and referred to as the center of our self-identity, or even called heart of the soul. Now, if you go back to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you can see that it says that Osiris is the soul of Ra in his own body, okay? And being of hidden in the form of temples, whose Ka, which means soul, is holy. And that's what this area represents out there. Okay, and I believe it is our collective soul. It is our collective consciousness. And it is creating all of the reality that we exist in right now. And that's the reason why you're going to see here in a little bit that these fractals that we see all the way down to the smallest little pieces that you can find on the Earth are apparently fractals from the Orion Nebula. It's showing that it's the same. And that's because our reality is a matrix of that consciousness, which is our collective consciousness. So let's flip through some of the pictures that these guys have left for us. You've seen this one. This is one by Giovanni Battista Galli. You can also find, you can see that all of these fractals, all of these images down to the detail, when they've been sectioned out, match. Even the white clouds here on the left side are all the way through. This is a match of the trapezium right here. This one you've seen. This one was with the Barnard's loop that you saw inside the Church of the Jesu. And I want you to notice that IHS, which is another name for Jesus, is located right in the center of this thing right here that this Barnard's loop goes around. And the Orion Nebula fits in there perfectly. In fact, it fits in there so perfectly that if you take a look at the gases and the dust that moves around the Orion Nebula out here, you'll find that you'll still see the silhouettes of these people way out here on the right. What I do is I take the original image, I take the Orion Nebula, and then I slowly decrease the transparency of the Orion Nebula until you reach the Orion Nebula. That way your eyes can follow all the way through and you can see from the original to the other original. And you can see the shape of the silhouettes. If you were to look at this as a face with two eyes and a mouth, you can see that that follows all the way through. And you can even section that down into smaller pieces and you can see that it's the same thing all the way through this whole thing. Okay? The amount of detail that it would be required to know what the Orion Nebula looks like for this all to be a planned conspiracy would be astronomical. But we can see that this is the case and this is what's being shown. This is the conversion of Saul done in 1542, done by Michelangelo. This is a very, very good one. This shows that this light, because these also tell stories as well, that light is coming from this area of the cosmos. It's showing it to be God, Jesus, okay, the Christ. This area of the cosmos presents a consciousness down to us. And if you take a look here, hold on just a second, let me just give you a higher resolution version. What you have down here is you have the Orion Nebula overlaid on top of this, but what I want to show you is, I want to show you that sectioned out. Here it is. Now, you can go through this in any area you like. What I looked at first was I looked at his hand on this side, and you can see this is the original of the Orion Nebula. And as you go through this, you can see that you're looking at the same thing all the way through as you are down here with her head next to somebody's butt, and you can even see that all the way through. You can see this guy's butt all the way through, and this is the dragon that's above there, and you can see that that forms that person perfectly all the way through. These are not random pictures of Jesus on a piece of toast. This is fractally proven all the way down to the very minute detail that you're seeing right here. And what I've done is I've taken this image and this image here, and all I've done is I've sectioned it out and I've magnified it so you can see the various areas and so you can see how they all correspond, and so that I can bring your eye to the focus area. Just like what you're looking at right down here, this guy's butt would be right here, right next to her head. You can see the guy's butt right next to her head. And you can see that this is the original of the Orion Nebula, and there it is. And you can follow that through, and you can see the same thing all the way through. I allow your eyes to focus by doing it that way. This is Matthias Grunwald, Eisenheim altarpiece in 1515. Once again, this is something that you cannot just make up. This is actually there. Just take a look at what you're looking at right here. All of the detail. And you have the same cloud formation every time. This is the center of the trapezium inside the Orion Nebula, where they're depicting Jesus and God and everything else, which is also the center of what's inside your head and what's inside the consciousness of this collective consciousness. So you can see the correspondence of the as above, so below, as below, so above. So when we look at this area, don't consider this an external being, but consider it a collective consciousness of all of us. And this is the area of the thalamus. The thalamus, when you connect the right and the left side of the masculine and the feminine, when it comes together, this is what you get. You get the power of being able to move the cosmos and things like that. This is when Jesus said you can move mountains. Look right here. If you notice, this is the original of the Orion Nebula. Notice the curve of the bow shock of this star. And if you go right through, you can see that still contained right here. Okay. Now, here is the one you just saw. You've seen that one. This is another version of the Barnard's loop circling the center of the Orion Nebula right here. This is the conversion of St. Paul on the road to Damascus. You can really see some interesting ones here. Notice the cloud formation. Notice it's the same in the same location. You have God coming out of the clouds, which is right here in the center of the trapezium. Notice the way these people are placed in like a circular manner. Okay, this is sectioned out. It's the same thing that you have going on right here. And I've even pulled out a random graphic down here to take a look at. This is El Greco, the adoration of the name of Jesus. Here we go again, that name Jesus. Here it is, IHS, pointed to in the same place, center of the Orion Nebula again. And look at what's been sectioned out. Notice that this forms an egg shape right here. And it follows all the way through, the egg shape being right here, all the way down into minute detail. Notice the angel's wings, all the way through. This is El Greco, Trinity. So you see the common theme. It's always in the center of the trapezium. And I want you to look here as you follow this all the way through. Even his face and the position that it's in is even copied into the original. And this is the reason why I believe this area also out here has to do with Akashic records, because it appears to be as if you were to take a movie reel, for example, take all of the frames from a movie reel and just pile them on top of each other. And so you do that enough times and they're all transparent, you get something where you're going to have lines that go all over the place. But look at the detail of his face in the same direction that you have it right here as you have over here. This is a really good one. Here's another one by Giovanni Battista Galli, which apparently was very connected because there's several by him, including the one in the Church of the Jesu, which is the Triumph of the Name of Jesus. But you still have this same trapezium thing going on right here with somebody ascending into the clouds. And so taking this right here, you can see that it is the same thing all the way through. And this is how they connected subconsciously and painted into the painting. There's so much proof here that that unless somebody's just totally blind and doesn't want to believe it, they're not going to, unless you just don't believe your eyes at all, there's a story being told here that you're never going to get from anything that gives it to you in language, because language can be twisted.